So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special webinar as we are celebrating this year's World Environment Day. My name is Amir, and I'm thrilled to host this important event today as we come together to honor our commitment to the planet and to discuss critical environmental issues. World Environment Day is celebrated every year on June 5th, and it was established by the United Nations in 1972. It serves as a global platform for raising awareness and taking action on pressing environmental challenges. This year's theme is accelerating land restoration to combat drought and desertification, highlighting the urgent need to restore our degraded lands and build resilience against drought and desertification. So, our esteemed speaker today is Mr. Anoop Singh. He is a PhD scholar at Gurukula Kangadi, which is deemed to be a university in Haridwar, and he is in association with the Wildlife Ministry of India, Dehradun also. He holds an MSc in Environmental Studies and Resource Management from Terry School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi. He is a recipient of prestigious Rufford Small Grant Award for his PhD study, which primarily focus on to study mangrove ecosystem recovery and response following post 2004 tsunami disturbances in the archipelago of Andaman and Nicobar. Mr. Anoop will be sharing his insights on ecological restoration, insights from the mangroves of Andaman Islands. The Andaman mangroves are a vital ecosystem providing numerous ecological services from carbon sequestration to protecting coastal areas from erosion and storms. So before we begin, let me share some context on why land restoration is crucial. As highlighted by the United Nations Environment Programme, nearly half of the world's population is affected by degraded lands, and the consequences are far-reaching, impacting biodiversity, climate, and human livelihoods. Restoration efforts can reverse these trends, offering up to $30 in benefits for every dollar invested or spent, which in turn enhances food security and helps in mitigating climate change. So now, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Anoop Singh. So Anoop, I will share the screen for you, and you are ready to go. Yes.
So, Amit, is my
Yes, it is. It
PPT
is.
visible?
Yes, it is. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So, a very good morning to all of you. Thank you, Amir, for a lovely intro and brief about the background about the World Environment Day. So, as we know that we are gathered here to celebrate the World Environment Day, which is under the theme of land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. Today, hi, I am Anoop Singh. Today, I'm going to take you all to the mangroves of Andaman Island and our insights about the ecological restoration. So mangrove ecosystem is a forest which reside between land and sea, and they are called as amphibian forest, which means that at every 6 hours the tidal water comes in and goes out from the mangrove ecosystem. They are unique in a sense that they are adopted in their morphology, in their reproductive biology to you know to sustain this environmentally challenging and harsh condition uh, and thrive in the intertidal forest. Uh, these forest ecosystem is comprised of taxonomically unrelated group of trees, shrubs, and ferns. Now, around 75% of low-lying tropical coastlines are inhabited by the mangroves, which and they are extended to the temperate region. For instance, South Florida and southern Japan in the northernmost extent to the South Africa, New Zealand, and the Victoria of Australia is the southernmost extent. Now, if you focus on the picture, this is a pictorial representation of the mangrove extent across the globe, where you see around 40% of mangrove extent is concentrated in the Indo-Pacific region, where Indonesia is the highest contributing country to the mangrove cover, whereas India is at the 10th place. Globally, There are around 70 mangrove species found across the world, and the hotspot of species richness is concentrated in the southeast region, which also includes our Andaman and Nicobar Island. Whereas, if you see the USA part, where the species richness is fairly low. Now, now let's concentrate on the coastal part of our India mainland, where you see we have a mid range of species richness. So, mangrove ecosystem provides innumerous and ecosystem services, right from natural defense against the natural disaster and climate change, which includes coastal erosion, extreme weather events, and sea level rise. So these ecosystems also act as a excellent carbon sink, and they are also could be called as a alternative or nature-based solution to the climate change. They could sequester around 1,000 metric ton of carbon per hectare, and which is around 3 to 4 times more carbon than any tropical terrestrial forest. Globally, around 80% of fish catch is directly or indirectly dependent on the mangroves. Now, if we try to give a monetary value to all the ecosystem services provided by the mangroves, you'll be amazed to know that it is around 800 billion US dollar per year. Now, despite this ecosystem, so much of ecosystem services or the benefits provided by the mangroves, they are constantly threatened by several human and natural factors. So, in a recent study, it was found that around 62% of mangrove globally is degraded due to land conversion for aquaculture and agriculture, while the remaining 38% is under stress due to natural phenomena, which also includes sea level change. In a recent estimate by the IPCC, it was they have found that globally around 4 of sea level rise is happening across the world, which will eventually increase up to 100 centimeter by 2100 year. But the situation of sea level rise is grim in Indo-Pacific region. For example, in Philippines, it was estimated that around 8 of sea level rise is happening each year. But what is the implication, or how the mangrove is going to, or how the mangrove is responding to this sea level change? And also, there is two scenario to it. If the sea level change is gradual, which is happening at a very slow pace, and if the sea level changes happen sudden. So we're going to talk both these scenarios in the upcoming slides. Now let us understand the response of mangrove to sea level change. So we have the four scenarios here. The first scenario is the mangrove has inherent capability to accrete soil, meaning it can deposit soil because of the entangled root system. So, so if the deposition of soil is equivalent to the sea level change, then there is no change in the position of mangroves, which means the mangrove is going to stay uh, where it was previously present. Now, the second scenario is the deposition of soil. If the deposition of soil is so high that it relatively draws the sea level compared to the mangrove surface, meaning that the land has uplifted because of the soil deposition, which means which means the entire mangrove ecosystem, right from landward to seaward, is forced to transgress towards the seaward, meaning that you see this back mangroves, they will be dying, and there is a new mangrove coming up in the seaward zone. Now, the third scenario is sea level rise scenario, where the soil from the mangrove is eroding. So once the soil from the mangrove is eroding, then there is a relatively rise in sea level compared to the mangrove surface, which means that mangroves are bound to move or transgress towards the landward side because of the land subduction, which means the mangrove at the seaward zone will be gradually dying, and there will be new mangrove coming up at the backward zone. So this is the third scenario. Now the fourth scenario is the same, where the erosion is happening, but there is a presence of obstacle. The obstacle could be in the form of human settlement or any physical boundary or even mounds. So now in this scenario, because there is sea level rise and mangrove has to move towards the landward boundary, but there is no space for mangrove to move. So in that scenario, there will be shrinkage of mangrove, spatial mangrove cover in that particular location. So these phenomena globally is altering the mangrove cover every year. Now this loss could be recovered through restoration. So the restoration is basically is to return an ecosystem to some previously existing condition that no longer is present at the site. So the entire restoration process is dependent upon three pillars. The first one is theoretical framework, which includes the science behind the restoration, which means what are the ecological theory, soil science, hydrology, conservation biology, etc. And the second thing is the social system, meaning where will be the funding coming from, what is the economic condition of the people, and the policy and regulation and etc. and etc. And the third thing is restoration toolbox, which means how the nursery or the plantation seedling saplings is going to be prepared, how we're going to modify the physical and chemical environment, and remove the physical or uh, barriers or invasive species present in the system. So, according to the Society of Ecological Restoration, they have given a recent definition that ecological restoration is an intentional activity that initiate or accelerate the recovery of ecosystem with respect to its health, integrity, and sustainability. Altogether, it means that restoration is attempt to return an ecosystem to its historic trajectory. So this is a map depicting the potential area available throughout the globe, and it was found out to be around 8 square kilometer globally, which is roughly around 5% of the total mangrove area present on the earth. So if you focus on this image, you see the hotspot area for restoration is in the Southeast Asia region, including and also Australia, and then the USA region. But the mangroves of Andaman Island offer unique opportunity for the restoration because of the very infamous 2004 earthquake and tsunami. So this particular event had experienced the 9.1 intensity of earthquake, which human have not seen in the recent past. And these two, tsunami and the earthquake together, uh, impacted the coastal ecosystem and biodiversity of almost all the Southeast Asian country. I mean, of course, it has to be on the coastal areas, and including Andaman and Nicobar Island. But there is another thing unique happened to with this event is that the earthquake has caused the vertical movement of the island. That is, permanently changed the coastal geomorphology, which is called as land uplift and subsidence. So I would like to draw your attention to this particular image on your right side, where if you see this black dotted line, which depicts the fault line of the Andaman and Nicobar Island. So now, because of the earthquake, the area above this black dotted fault line, which is represented in the gradient of red color, it was uplifted. That is, the land has came out of water or is exposed out of water, uh, and the area below this black dotted line is represented in gradient of light blue color, shades of blue color, which was subsided, uh, across the Andaman Nicobar Island. So let us understand this phenomena with a simple representation. Suppose this is the Andaman Island before tsunami. Now, because of this earthquake, this fault line rupture, the northern part of the island was uplifted by 1.4 meter. This is suppose the northern part of the island, and this is the South Andaman and the Nicobar part of the island, which was subsided by 2.8 meter. And there was no significant change observed in the middle Andaman part. So this is one site from the North Andaman where I would like to draw your attention at two places. This is focus on the this pristine mangrove patch, and also the shoreline. If you see, the shoreline is somewhere close to here. Now, because of the land uplift, the water which was able to move inside the mangrove forest is not able to move, not able to flux inside the forest, which cause the severe degradation of mangrove. As you can see, the entire mangrove is gone now. And also, if you see, the shoreline has already moved toward the seaward, which is around 500 to, at some places, 1 kilometer. So, and this event, the uplift event alone has caused around 66 square kilometer of mangrove degradation in the uplift region, and in some sites it is around 100% degradation of the mangroves. Whereas the area close to the North Andaman is Mayabandar, that also lost around 52 square kilometer of mangrove because of the land uplift. Now, the opposite scenario in the subsided sites of South Andaman and Nicobar, where the water was permanently inundated in the forest, or the frequency of tidal water inundation has increased. So, because of the change in the tidal influx, there was hypoxic condition was created in this habitat. So because of this hypoxic condition, it led to degradation of around 6 square kilometer of mangroves in South Andaman, and around 97% of mangrove in Nicobar Island. However, despite severe negative impact, this coastal uplift and subsidence has created a new intertidal habitat, has provided an opportunity to recover the mangrove loss. So now remember this uplift region, the movement of shoreline towards the seaward. This is how this habitat exactly look like, uh, which is uh, which is full of dead corals, and it is now offering colonization for the mangroves, which is also called as sea level drop. Now the opposite scenario, a sea level rise scenario, or the land subsidence scenario, where the water was inundated. So it has, at some places it has even inundated to the coconut groves, or even the terrestrial forest. So because of the hypoxic condition created in these coconut groves and terrestrial forest, uh, these these this system is now offering mangrove colonization because of presence of intertidal habitat. For example, if you see the these snags are of the terrestrial forest, and here is the coconut groves remnant structure. If you see, so these areas is now happily colonizing by the mangroves. And also at some places where the landward mangroves, meaning that mangrove which requires less tidal water inundation, are thriving at the landward zone towards the human habitation. Those areas are now being shifted or taken over by the rhizophora species. So, but as it is already, I mean, so many study have already talked about, and it's been proven that nearly 90% of mangrove restoration fails. And there is several reasons behind it, that there is no understanding on why natural regeneration is failing, why the mangrove or species is not coming naturally in that particular site, and uh, not considering any barrier present in all present already in the site, which is not letting the site to offer colonization by the natural species. And also there is no involvement or less involvement of local community, their knowledge, their understanding on the system, and then wrong plantation techniques, and then less consideration to the site history. Also, no consideration or less consideration to the mangrove zonation pattern, which means this zonation pattern, we mean is that the species which is present at the seaward zone requires high amount of tidal water inundation, requires high amount of salinity, whereas the species present at the landward zone requires less amount of tidal water inundation and salinity. Which means if you are, yeah, so which means we need to be very conscious while choosing the species for the plantation. And also there's less involvement of micro environmental condition and the hydrological conditions. So keeping these things in line, we took a long term study across the Andaman Nicobar Island, with specific objectives. First was to identify the potential area available for colonization or restoration across the Andaman and Nicobar Island. Second objective was what are the species preferred in the uplift, that is sea level drop scenario, and the subsided, that is sea level rise scenario. And then the third objective was to document the zonation pattern. Is there any zonation pattern coming up in the new tidal habitat? And then what are the factors responsible for the natural colonization? For example, pH, salinity, substratum, etc. Sorry. And then the another objective was, is there any natural or man-made barrier in the new tidal habitat? And the last objective was to create awareness among the frontline staffs and the locals. So with this objective, with this study, we have already published a few publication in a peer-reviewed, reputed journals. Uh, so now we have, our first objective was to estimate the potential area available, and this study we have exclusively conducted in the Nicobar group of island, where we found that around 1800 hectare of habitat is potentially available for colonization or restoration. So this is the image on your left is a one example island. This is the southernmost island called as Great Nicobar Island, which has experienced the highest level of subsidence, that is 2.8. So the picture in pink is area available for colonization or restoration, whereas the area in green is already colonized by mangrove. However, this study is not yet published for the Andaman part of the island, whereas we are already the analysis of this Andaman part is already ongoing. So the next objective was to understand what are the preferred species colonizing on the uplifted sites. So for that, we surveyed some of the sites in the uplifted site which is already offering colonization by the mangroves. So, and we found that this habitat is colonized by pioneer and aggressive colonizers such as Avicennia marina, Rhizophora mucinata, Rhizophora apiculata, and Luminicera racemosa. For instance, the image on your left on the top, this is a monodominant stand of Avicennia, which is colonizing the new tidal habitat at the uplifted sites, where the image at below is a Rhizophora species colonizing in the new tidal habitat. So now the point here is, if you want to plan or take up a restoration or plantation drive in uplifted sites, so our primary object or our primary choice would be these four species to initially go with and start the plantation drive, because this surface is already offering these four species in high number. So, but now the uplifted side is it has created different kind of substratum, and each substratum is offering a different kind of challenge for the natural colonization and even for restoration and plantation. So this is, remember, this is our dead coral habitat at the seaward zone in the uplifted sites. So this site is extremely challenging site, I mean habitat, because of that exposed to the storm wind and also to the strong tidal water inundation, and also this surface is having dead corals and calcareous surface. So it is very difficult for the mangrove propagules to anchor and establish in the first place itself. So if you are taking this kind of habitat for the restoration or plantation, then we need to consider Rhizophora apiculata, Avicennia marina, and Soneria alba as our primary species for the plantation or restoration. But we should expect very less success rate at this kind of sites, because it's a very difficult surface for the root to actually penetrate through. Now, the next kind of substratum was sandy beach kind of substratum, which is very fine in structure. So, this substratum is the best colonized by Avicennia marina and Soneria alba. If you're selecting this kind of site for the plantation or registration, then we need to go with Avicennia marina and Soneria species uh, for the plantation. Now, the third kind of habitat created in the uplifted region was habitat is colonized by bushy grasses, which is also debated to be a mangrove species called as Fimbristalis. And this particular habitat is kind of mechanically trapping the small propagule size mangrove. For example, if you see this Luminicera and Exocaria. So if you are planning to take up plantation or restoration of these kind of sites, then we need to take up species with small propagule size. Now the other objective was to understand the preferred species colonizing on the subsided sites. So similarly, we surveyed the subsided sites and we found the Rhizophora apiculata, Bulgaria gymnorhiza, Siriostogala, and Avicenna marina are the four dominant species colonizing in this habitat. So the point here to notice is the Rhizophora apiculata and Avicenna marina are already a pioneer species and very aggressive colonizer. But this Bruguera gymnorhiza and Pseudo struggle, they are the mid-zone species, exclusively colonizing in the subsided side. So if we are taking plantation or restoration drive in area which is affected by land subsidence or sea level rise, then we need to plant species which is mix of the pioneer and also the mid zone species. So, similar to the uplifted side, the subsided side has also provided a different kind of substratum. For instance, if you see this particular site, which is already colonized by mangrove, called as Cereops, which is a mid-zone mangrove, as I already mentioned. So now, because of the infrequent tidal water inundation and the frequency of tidal water inundation has increased because of land subsidence, this habitat is offering colonization by the species which have higher tolerance for the salinity. For example, Rhizophora apiculata, Rhizophora mucinata, and Avicenna varina. So this particular kind of sites would be taken over from the mid-zone mangrove or the mid-zone mangrove by the high tolerant mangrove species present at the seaward zone. So there is this another kind of habitat created at the landward zone, which where this particular site typically receives tidal water inundation once or twice in an entire 15 days tidal cycle. So which means that here the species with less tolerance or the backward mangrove species is going to be preferred. So if you are going to plan a plantation drive or scheme in such kind of habitat, then we need to focus on phoenix, luminizera, or back mangrove kind of species. Now the other objective was to find out the natural barrier present in the new natural habitat and its impact on the mangrove restoration or plantation mangrove are colonizing naturally on the mangrove. So we found that spotted deer and domestic cattle were the dominant herbivory pressure present in the island. I would like to draw your attention to the image on the right, on the top, and also on the bottom. You see this; these are the on the top. These are the pencil roots, which is even grazed by spotted deer. Whereas this is the new mangrove coming up in the uplift area is also grazed by the spotted deer. So then later on we thought, is there any pattern of herbivory pressure on the species colonizing or the plantation in the mangroves? And then we found that species or the individual colonizing at the landward zone is highly influenced or highly grazed as compared to the species in the ecodone and seaward zone. So that means that subsided sites with new natural habitat at the landward zone is going to be affected more with this natural barrier present in the island. And also we observed that there is a palatability preference by the herbivory, uh, which means they are preferring one mangrove species for eating over the other, which for example, we found Syrup struggle was the least preferred species among all the mangroves, and which means that it may alter the composition or even the restoration drive which we are planning to conduct in such kind of habitat. So the next step was to restore uh, to create awareness among the forest frontline staff, who are the people actually involved in plantation drive on field. So for that uh, we conducted five sensitization workshop across the forest division of Andaman Island, and it was divided into two segment. One was the classroom based session and the other was the field excursion, where we have given the hands on training to identify mangroves, especially mangrove species present in their division, and then some restoration technique or do's and don'ts they need to consider while planning any restoration or the plantation scheme. So, so here is another. Here is a restoration technique widely used across the world, also in India, which is known as fishbone technique. And this technique is usually adopted to restore the hydrology of the particular site, which is very popular in mainland India. But given the amount of energy and in terms of money and labor, it may not be useful or much helpful in the Andaman and Nicobar Island. Where the another technique called elevated mound technique, uh, which is adopted to reduce the inundation and tidal water force. So this particular technique is very famous in Gujarat, and it could be also tried in the Andaman and Nicobar Group Island. So now to sum up the entire restoration or plantation techniques recommended in the Andaman Islands, we
Anoop,
first recommend.
Anoop,
Yes.
just one second, please. So there was a slight delay.
Yeah.
So maybe you could, if you could just take your take the previous slide, go to the previous
This one.
slide. No, before this, there was a slight
This one.
delay in the network. Before the elevated mount string, before that,
This one. No.
when you were talking about these deer, I think,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
So there was a
here.
slight delay. Yes,
Okay. So
this one,
shall I
this one.
repeat?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so
Please,
the
please.
next, I mean, the another objective was our objective was to understand or to find out is there any natural barrier already present in the site which is already colonizing or is need to be taken up for the restoration. And we found out that herbivory pressure along with domestic cattle was a dominant factor in the habitat. And if you see this image on your right, the top, where the deer or the spotted deer have not even spared the pencil roots of the mangroves, and forget about the new sapling coming up in the in a new adult habitat, which is depicted in the picture below. And then later on we thought, is there any pattern of grazing or the by the spotted deer? And then for that we found out that the landward mangroves is highly grazed by the spotted deer compared to ecotone and seaward zone, which suggests that the the new tidal habitat created at the landward zone, which is our subsided sites, is going to be impact more by the spotted deer compared to the new tidal habitat created in the uplifted zone, which is toward the seaward zone. And also, we found out that the herbivory pressure by spotted deer has a palatability preference, which means they are preferring one mangrove species over the other. And we found that except serious struggle, they are feeding on everything and anything. So which indicates that any plantation drive or any scheme we are taking up on this kind of habitat is going to influence by spotted deer. So we need to either check on this barrier, or we need to plant species which is not preferred by the spotted deer. So, in line with that, our other objective was to sensitize our forest frontline staff who are actually involved in the plantation drive on ground. So, to achieve this, we conducted 5 sensitization workshops across the forest division of Andaman and Nicobar Island. And this sensitization workshop was divided into two segments. One was class-based session, and other was field excursion. Where in the class and in field excursion at both the places, we try to provide a hands-on training on mangrove identification and the restoration techniques could be adopted locally for that particular region. And also, what are do's and don'ts they need to remember while planning any plantation schemes. So here is one registration technique very widely used, which is called as fishbone technique to restore the hydrology of particular landscape. But this is popular in mainland India. However, it is given the amount of energy in terms of labor and money required, it may not be feasible in Andaman Islands. there is another technique called elevated mound technique, which is very popular in Gujarat, where the mud flats are elevated and mangroves are planted to reduce the inundation and tidal water force impact on the seedlings. And this technique could be applied or used in Andaman and Nicobar Island. Now, to sum up the entire study or the entire takeaway message from our study, uh, we recommend to first facilitate the natural recovery of the site itself without any intervention. The other is to remove the natural barrier present or any hindrance present in the site for natural colonization, such as herbivory, predation, or hydrology, in fact, even. So now, if both the factors are not happening, then we need to think of, does plantation required for this site? If yes, then we need to understand what are the species already colonizing, as I have already mentioned, depending upon the substratum and depending upon its tidal water inundation and frequency it's coming up in that particular site. So based on that, those and the zonation pattern will come into play, and then based on that, we need to decide which species and what species to be planted in the particular sites. So with this, I would like to acknowledge following people, which includes all our funding agencies, the head of institutes, in institute involved, the Rufford Foundation, the department for their help throughout the 5 years study, and our project team, Dr. Nehru and Mr. Tirumurugan, and of course our field assistant across the Andaman and Nicobar Island. So, with this, thank you for your patience and listening to me. I am open to the questions.
Thank you, Anoop. Thank you very much. So it was really a fascinating and enlightening presentation. So your insights on restoration of Andaman mangroves highlight the significant impact of dedicated conservation efforts. So we are now open to questions. So let me just go to the chat box and let's see if we have any questions. Yes. Just a minute. So we'll wait for some time. Till then, I might. So if it is okay with you, so if you could just share your story. I mean, your journey, how it started, and how what persuaded you to work on the. I mean, in the Andaman for the mangroves. Just briefly, if you could. I
Yeah,
mean, your
sure.
journey. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yes.
I joined the institute back in 2017, and then I got opportunity to work in NMSHE project for very brief time. Uh, and then I was, of course, being a botany background, I was very fascinated with the plant, plant ecology and community ecology, how species are occurring and happening. So, and then, uh, I have already, uh, shared this in this thing before as well, that I met with my supervisor, and I saw his presentation in our institute itself, and I was very much moved with the uh, the kind of entire so many interdisciplinary things involved to understand the ecological process in the mangrove. So this fascinated me a lot, and I approached him, and thankfully he accepted to guide me to understand this system. And then yes, after that, I've been in some or the other way, I've been finding opportunity to just visit island and see the mangroves. So yeah, that's my happy place.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. So you mentioned that 90% of restoration work in while restoring the mangroves it fails somehow. And
Correct.
how do you assess? I mean, what are the indicators of like how you assess the ecological recovery? Are there any
Yeah.
indicators?
So see, as far as mangrove, ecosystem is concerned, suppose, of course, one thing is it's a visible. If your plantation or restoration is successful in some sense, then species will start colonizing. Okay, the mangrove, the spatial cover of the mangrove will start increasing. Once the mangrove, cover is started increasing, then the associated fauna, which includes right from crabs to fishes, because they use this habitat as a nursery ground for breeding and also escape from the bigger predator. So
Okay.
these guys comes up and start habitat these places, which is a very good indicator that the ecosystem is recovering. And then once this system are coming up, then people are start utilizing, especially people from Andaman and Nicobar, where agriculture is a primary kind of primary source of income or the livelihood. So they are
Yeah.
heavily dependent on mangroves. They started using this system, so which
Mhm.
also indicates that now the system is coming back to its usual scenario.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, are there any policies from the government in place? I mean, in terms of Andaman and Nicobar to restore mangrove ecosystems?
So there is no as such particular policy for the Andaman, but there is, you must have heard, there is a new scheme called Misty scheme, recently announced by our finance minister in the parliament. So
Hmm.
through this scheme, they are trying to restore mangrove across the India, which is also kind of commitment of India, commitment, national commitment and the international commitment to increase their mangrove cover. So
Okay.
of course, yes, there is this new scheme has come up from the government of India. However, on ground, I have not noticed any changes per se in the Andaman Island from this
Okay.
scheme. Yeah.
So, any successful case studies around India? I mean, in India, where the policies have been implemented. I mean, successfully.
Uh, so after this, in the last year, we itself, department itself, reached us and try to understand that how best we can start, because the department itself has, they have the commitment of 2 hectare plantation every year as part of their working plan, a 5 year
Yeah.
working plan. So luckily last year they contacted us to suggest which site and how to go about that particular site. So
Okay.
hopefully, last year we have planted that site, and I have not got opportunity to visit that site. But the
Yeah.
images I receive, looks like the mangroves
Heartwarming
are
images.
coming. Yes. So they
Nice.
have
Nice.
they have at least they have established themselves in that particular habitat.
Okay. Okay. So, also you mentioned about something about local communities. The involvement is it not that much?
See, there is very unique challenge in Andaman, because these people, like in any other system,
Yeah.
you see people who are inherent, born in that places from generation to generations, so they have knowledge to pass on, and
Hmm.
especially in Andaman Island, these people are settlers from the mainland. Most, like 95% people are settlers from mainland. So
Yeah.
they have no, and these people are mostly from non-coastal areas,
Okay.
so they have no background of mangrove as such. So they have
Mhm.
evolved. Once they reach there, they have evolved and try to learn this system, how to use them. And for them also, I think, uh, this kind of episode, like uplift and subsidence, is very
Yeah.
rare to them. So
Mhm.
of course, their willingness to uh,
Participate.
but I think, yeah, it's very less. But there is always willingness to contribute, because now after this event they have understand the importance of mangrove,
Mhm.
because they notice that wherever there are mangrove, the impact just behind, the settling population just behind the mangrove patch was very less compared to the sites where there was no mangrove,
No.
or it was
Yeah.
open coast, or it was a different vegetation coast. So
Mhm.
yes, they now acknowledge and they understand and they are willing to contribute. But yes, because since we don't have large scale restoration program across the island, uh, so uh, so you will not see much involvement of these local people. But of course, I think, as per my experience, field experience, if you involve them, they are more than happy to come and assist in the restoration and plantation process.
So, were you able to, I mean, get an idea of traditional knowledge from the endemic people over there?
Yeah, I haven't met any endemic people. The indigenous people of
Yes.
Andaman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm calling.
yeah, because it's a restricted, I mean, thing to do, and there is very less population actually remaining. So I have not met
Hmm.
them. I mean, yeah, I have not met in 5 years.
Okay, nice, thanks. I'm still waiting for questions. So it's like it looks like it's just me who's asking questions. So let me just check once and then we can wind it up. So yeah, this is just final. This I wanted to. This is just on a personal basis. So, I mean, for the people who want to work over there. So, are there any collaborative opportunities for attendees who can just get involved in mangrove restoration? I mean, if you could just say something about
Oh
that,
yes, I
so that.
mean, I see. It's a definitely very promising field as a personal, I mean, career. As a, if you see, it's a very few people are there across the India who is working, in the system, in the mangrove system.
Mhm.
So definitely the risk, I mean, the rewards are very high compared to any other system to work. So definitely there is a lot of scope, of course, because this is a very unique in situ, and the laboratory has already created in the field to study. So
Definitely.
I mean, it's up to the individual how they want to take up this kind of scenario. And of course, in our lab, there is a scope for I mean, interested people to come and join us. We will be more than happy to help in any
Nice,
way.
nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice. That is what I wanted to hear. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anoop. So it was a fascinating session. So thank you for sharing your valuable research. And so as we conclude, let's remember that each one of us has a role to play in restoring not just the mangroves but our planet. So together we can accelerate the efforts needed to combat land degradation and drought. And thank you very much, Anoop, once again for joining us.
Absolutely.
And thank you all who have joined us today. And we wish you a very happy World Environment Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. Thank you, the viewers.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Take care.